Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mobility Matters. I'm your host, Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, or CITT. We're an independent agency of Miami-Dade County charged with overseeing your half-penny sales tax for transportation. With me today is an amazing guest, and thank you for being here, Grace Perdomo with Transit Alliance. And I'll allow Grace in a minute to speak more about what her organization does. Well, let's just do that now, Grace. There's no sense in waiting.
Of course.
First of all, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Javier. My pleasure to be here with you this morning for this timely and exciting conversation.
Thanks.
So thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell us about yourself.
Sure.
And about your organization and what you do.
I joined Transit Alliance last year during the spring as their new executive director. I was born and raised in New York and have raised a family here in Miami. I'm an architect and urban designer and city planner by background and training. And over the past 20 plus years of my professional life, I've had the good fortune of really working in the field of what I love and am passionate about, which is city building, city planning. And in all my planning efforts, always the one element that keeps popping up, whether you're dealing with zoning, economic development, public space design, is transit and mobility. And the idea that transit and mobility is the one element that connects everything together, right? That connects people to place, but also people to opportunity. So the opportunity to be serving with Transit Alliance as their executive director is, again, something that I'm incredibly committed to. Transit Alliance is an organization that advocates for better access to public transit, walkability, and bikeability throughout our county. And we came into existence around 2015. A group of enraged citizens fought budget cuts to transit to the tune of $15+ million. And through advocacy, we're able to restore that budget cut, knowing that that was going to affect our most vulnerable neighborhoods and populations throughout the county. And we're very data-driven. Our process is very much engaged in community process outreach, and all with the goal of affecting planning and policy around transit and mobility.
Wonderful. So you mentioned you came from New York, so this is a critical question. Jets, Giants, or Dolphins? Who do you root for?
Jets.
We're going to have to end this show prematurely. No, just kidding.
Yeah. But one thing that I do want to point out is that we are seeing a change. Of course, you mentioned New York, right? The daily commute of our residents throughout a city is really changing the way in which people relate to their cities. And so I think in a place like Miami, we have to get that commuting right? Because it affects everything: work-life balance, health, housing affordability, economic mobility. And that's one of the things that we as an organization are very focused on.
No, absolutely. New York, of course, has an amazing transit system, a growing connected bicycle network. So a lot of things we can learn from New York. And if you look at Brickell, it's starting to look like New York. So it's about time our transportation infrastructure catches up.
Right.
So speaking of New York and development, let's talk about the other side of the coin, which is land use. Obviously, transportation and land use are interrelated and interconnected. I know that Transit Alliance recently focused on something called the Rapid Transit Zone and supported that. Do you want to speak to what that is?
Yes, absolutely. We led a very exciting campaign leading up to the County Commission vote for the RTZ. Clearly, the relationship between land use and transit is critical, and we need to, as a city, move forward with understanding that land use can support our transit corridors, transit ridership, transit investment. So we rallied behind ensuring that the ordinance was passed. It has been a key critical component of the SMART program. And we were able to build a coalition of over 20 partners that were representative of the business community, development community, riders, non-transit riders, to sign on to support that critical ordinance. So we're very excited that it passed and vote 8-3. And it's a very promising and important tool, again, for ensuring that investments in transit and also that we can increase our ridership along our important critical transit corridors to support the SMART program and other investments and plans.
And what do you say to folks, particularly I would say in suburban communities, who are afraid of how the RTZ might change the character of the community?
I don't think it's a matter of one size fits all. I think that there's a large education process related to understanding how density can be achieved and still be respectful of the character and the scale of communities. So I think that moving forward, we do have to bring along the community to understand the relationship, the important intersectionality between land use and transit, and also that density is not a bad word, but rather that it is really an important mechanism and tool to support, as I said, these transit investments that are critical to the way we move around in our city, and that it can be achieved in a variety of ways, that it's not just one blanket expression or form of density. Yeah.
And in fact, if I understand the ordinance correctly, it actually allows the cities to kind of determine their own fate, right? They have a couple of years to put together a plan to meet the intent of the ordinance.
Correct.
Meanwhile, the ordinance really right now is focused on, I guess, unincorporated Miami-Dade County. Is that right?
Correct. The communities will have 2 years to be able to come up with their own plans. And in turn, again, I think there's still much work to do, as you know, but it is most certainly a step in the right direction. And I think really a watershed moment for Miami in terms of being able to pass that ordinance and what it means for the future of our identified transit corridors.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to another initiative of Transit Alliances, and what you're probably best known for at this point is the Better Bus Network.
Better Bus Network.
Immediate prior guest, Director Cleckley, spoke about the Better Bus Network, what they're doing to implement it, and some of the challenges they're facing with respect to the labor shortage and whatnot. But this was really an initiative of Transit Alliances. As you want to talk about, again, for those who maybe didn't see the other show, what is the Better Bus Network? What was Transit Alliance's involvement? And what do you say to the department and to the county about its implementation?
The Better Bus Network came around again in about 2015, following a series of successful campaigns that Transit Alliance led in terms of elevating the understanding of the importance of transit and mobility throughout the city. Found funding. The organization Transit Alliance found the funding, led one of the largest grassroots effort to redesign the bus network. As you may know, it's a network that had not seen any investment for the past 30 years, any new investment and improvements, and redesigned the network, delivered the project on time and on budget to improve bus service throughout the county. The modeling of the redesign included assessing the effort regarding two models of ridership versus coverage. And there were many conversations with the community of the benefits and trade-offs with both the ridership model and the coverage model. Currently, for us, the Better Bus Network is a priority to get our transportation system and transit and mobility improved throughout the county. We consider bus transit to be the backbone of our transit system throughout the county. And clearly, if you are a transit rider and rely on the bus today to get to work, to get to healthcare, to get to education, there's immense drawbacks, challenges to be able to do that on time. And also, given our current housing affordability, the cost burden of housing and transportation for our residents throughout Miami is at the tune of 60% of their income. It's one of the highest in the country. Right now, transportation cost burden for a household is at about 25%, and it should be anywhere between 12 to 15%. So it has an enormous impact, again, on housing affordability. We've been providing support and continue to lead with thoughts on innovation, thought leadership, and also some practical problem solving in terms of how we get that off the ground, and have had numerous conversations with Ulyss and his team on how we can make that happen. And conversations not only locally. Transit Alliance also sits at the table with national advocacy organizations that are also struggling with the same kind of problems in their communities, and trying to find ways in which we can work with the federal government, the FTA, to again, on the bus operator crises, improve conditions for our bus operator workers, increases in salary, promoting and ensuring safety, flexibility in scheduling, childcare, et cetera. So the problems are many, but I think, again, recruitment and workforce development needs to look at how we can improve those working conditions and try to, again, see how it can impact implementing it as quickly as possible. The original timeline was June of this year. We hope that within the next year, we can certainly are relying on CABA and Director Cluckley and his team to be able to implement it in a timely fashion.
And by the way, I have to give Transit Alliance a ton of credit.
Thank you.
When you first pursued the Better Bus Network, I think it was the Better Bus Project at the time.
Yes.
I think the prevailing wisdom was that it wasn't going to work, right?
Right.
The county had tried for decades to improve its bus system. It knew it needed to.
Right.
But time and time again, it would run into politics and it would fall apart, right? It's hard to change these things. Enter Transit Alliance. You had one of the most robust community engagement initiatives I have ever seen. You truly engaged with the community and did so in a very intelligent way, right? Using data and technology, which is great. So my hats off to Transit Alliance. If not for Transit Alliance, Better Bus Network would not have been approved. So
thank you. Thank you. Again, it really proves the power of advocacy and also of grassroots involvement and really the power of meeting our riders where they are. As Director Cluckley pointed out, everyone becomes a transportation expert, and that is really the ideal way in which to make improvements in our transit and mobility when we can tackle the problems in a collective way. And also when we can lead the call by really pointing to what are the principles that we need to rely on to really evaluate mobility improvements and projects, but also to evaluate the type of investments that we want to see across our network.
And I think it demonstrates as well that democracy works, right? Civic engagement works when applied correctly and with passion and with intelligence. So, don't give up on government, folks. It will do what you want it to do when you get involved, in a smart way. So let's move on from that for a second to bicycle pedestrian mobility. I know that's another area that you mentioned that the organization is involved in. So what are you doing in that area?
So we've been leading a Build It campaign that we call Build It, Bike It. We are very much focused on understanding that improving transportation, the whole is, of course, greater than the sum of its parts, right? So bicycle and pedestrian mobility safety is essential and critical part of that infrastructure of transit. And we've been advocating for a number of projects throughout the county, including improvements to the downtown mobility network, which part of it has already been implemented, along Venetian Causeway, along Rickenbacker Causeway. We have an interesting and very exciting program called Dade Rides, which we have used over the past few months. We've conducted a series of community rides throughout Dade County. And initially it was to celebrate projects that have been implemented, in essence, celebrating wins. But it has also served to highlight areas in our city which currently do not have any bike safety infrastructure, communities that are currently have just lack of or no infrastructure in place to get, for example, kids to ride their bikes to school, folks out of their cars, access to transit stations, and even to bus stops. So we're very focused on highlighting that over the next series of events that we'll be hosting. Next month, our next bike ride will be in Allapattah. We're partnering with the Allapattah Collaborative to conduct a bike ride in that community. And also as an opportunity to engage the public, to understand the issues related to safety, to Vision Zero, and also to highlight for the county what are some of the needed improvements in that area.
So part of that infrastructure, in theory, would also serve micromobility.
Yes.
And that's been a controversial subject in Miami-Dade County and in many other communities, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's an electric scooter, electric bike, sometimes there's conflicts between those and pedestrians. I know, for instance, City of Miami, has gone back and forth as to whether to allow those. What are your thoughts on micromobility and how it could be a complementary mode of transportation versus a competing one?
We again think that it's all about the integration of mode choice and a variety of mode choices that folks can use to get to where they need to be. We think that micromobility offers another option for people to use to get to, to cover their daily rides to services and to other areas. We are also very much focused on first mile, last mile accessibility to train stations, bus stops, again, in an effort to be able to create a very integrated system of mobility throughout our county and within neighborhoods and cities.
Okay. And do you bike yourself?
I do. I live in Coral Gables, which is somewhat bike friendly. Yeah. And I also, with the hybrid work model, we're not as reliant on the use of cars. Whenever I have to go to county hearings, I ride Metro Rail service from Douglas Station. So yeah, we live in a transit friendly, pedestrian friendly community.
Wonderful. So you spoke of county meetings. So tonight is the county's budget hearing.
Yes.
5:00. Be there if you can.
We will be there.
And so what are your thoughts on the budget?
We are excited to see that the budget is indeed very balanced and focused on continuing the efforts related to transit investments throughout the county. We think there are some additional room for additional funding related to being able to implement a dedicated bus lanes throughout the county. We think that's an important infrastructure component also for the frequency service that will be gained through the Better Bus Network. And it's one of the things that Transit Alliance had identified during the redesign of the bus network. So we think that there's an opportunity to accelerate including that infrastructure improvement through the form of a quick build type pilot program, identifying certain high frequency corridors that can, again, deliver improvements on frequency and time for our riders. We're very impressed with the gains that cities like Boston and others have made in being able to implement these pilot programs for dedicated bus lanes, and people love them so much that now they want them to be entirely permanent. So Boston is a good model, as well as other cities, and so we've been doing research and analysis and trying to see how we can make those type of improvements coincide with the rollout of the BBN.
And dedicated bus lanes, obviously a great thing for transit users, right? You don't get stuck in traffic. You're able to get your destination in a shorter amount of time. But obviously another controversial issue, because those who prefer to drive to work feel like they'll be losing a lane and just making traffic that much worse. So what do you say to that?
That's a very charged question, Javier.
I apologize.
But a good one. Yeah. We know it's about, again.
I know you have a good answer.
Yeah,
that's why.
Exactly. Those type of conversations when we started the Better Bus Network, were difficult conversations to have. But I think that part of it is being able to engage the community, raising awareness and understanding through education. And bringing people along to understand that everything that we do today to build and improve transit and mobility is about building the future of our city and the city that we envision for Miami. So there are going to be undoubtedly trade-offs. But again, we've seen the models work in other cities, and in particular with dedicated bus lanes, again, the benefits that can accrue from being able to implement that type of infrastructure and putting that in place will most likely outweighs the trade-offs and the constraints that can pose. I know it's not an easy conversation or lift to do, but I think that, again, the gains outweigh the constraints,
And
the
presumably,
challenges.
as you make transit better, more people will choose transit over cars, thereby freeing up space in the lanes that do exist.
Absolutely. There a lot of things go along with that, signalization, ensuring safety, but we also, considering that we're building for the future, we also understand that dedicated bus lanes, once they're in place, become the best infrastructure for a future that looks at automated vehicles for buses. So again, we're building today for a future tomorrow that envisions a more interconnected, accessible city throughout and how people move within Miami-Dade County.
Okay, so we've talked about buses, we've talked about bike ped, we've talked about rapid transit zones. What else are you engaged in that you'd like to speak about?
So Transit Alliance this past year has spent some time developing what we call our mobility blueprint. It basically outlines the programs, campaigns, and efforts that we will be focused on over the past 5 years. We've also been very much focused on analysis and data that supports 4 key pillars that we think should guide all mobility decisions and also be used to measure mobility investments. And these 4 pillars basically focus on the following: that it takes transit, for example, for economic mobility. It takes transit for health justice. It takes transit to really reach our climate action goals for 2030, and also to address our housing affordability crises. And the data that we've collected is impressive. For every $1 of investment in transit, there's, this is a known metric, $4 to $5 of return to the economy. And every year that we delay in making these infrastructure improvements to improve transit throughout our city translate to societal costs that have an impact. The longer we take to be able to increase transit ridership, it has an impact on our 2030 climate action goals, but even more so on the economic mobility of our community. So when we talk about Opportunity Miami and what we envision the Miami of the future, we have to consider that it really needs to be about improving transit overall for our residents and our population, and how the impact that has on everything else in our community. Build It, Bike It will continue to be a central focus of our efforts and our campaigns. We also think that with regards to the SMART plan, there's an opportunity to look at an evaluation, not more planning necessarily, but an evaluation that looks at equitable access and what we call ETOD, equitable transit-oriented development. We've been partnering with the Center for Neighborhood Technology in Chicago to look at opportunities in which we can do that sort of evaluation for the SMART program, and especially in light of federal funding that is all tied to be able to create investments that do provide equitable access to communities that are most in need for those type of transit investments. So we'll continue to tackle that part of the SMART program, SMART plan efforts.
Okay, wonderful. And for those who are watching and are interested in mobility and transportation and want to become more involved, are there opportunities to become involved?
Absolutely.
With Transit Alliance?
Yes, we have a series of chapters, members that were very engaged during the redesign of the Better Bus Network, and continue to be engaged in a number of our efforts. We also have a Riders Council that has a representative from each of the 13 county districts, and we're looking to add to that council more members. So stay tuned to a call for members for our Riders Council coming up through our newsletter. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to our newsletter. We post every other week information on our campaigns, on our efforts, calls to action, which have proven to be incredibly successful. Just through follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, we cover it all. And please join us during one of our Dade rides that we are promoting. October 15th is the next one, as I mentioned earlier.
Dade rides, are those police escorted, or?
We did have police escort in South Dade, which was very helpful. Yeah. We again were joined by some of our commissioners, community organizations, nonprofits also joined us during that Dade ride, and we'll continue again to really look forward to engaging everyone to join us during those fun events. Wonderful.
Okay, so we know you're a Jets fan, and I forgive you for that. So Yankees, Mets, or Marlins? None of the above.
None of the above.
Not a baseball fan.
No.
Great. So you still have family in New York?
I do. I travel often, but now my kids are kind of spread out, and that's another reason for me to be involved with Transit Alliance. I say this in a selfish way, but as a mom, and we talk a lot about brain drain. My kids one is right now in Barcelona. I have another son in Ann Arbor. And they often talk about if they come back to Miami, they don't want to have to drive. They would love to be able to ride public transit. And I know a lot of folks feel that way as well. So, yeah.
I can understand that. I left Miami for DC to go to school, and never thought I'd come back.
Great place.
Great place for transit as well, and
Right.
increasingly also for bike, getting around by bike. And when I came back, I said, okay, I'll come back to Miami, but I have to do something to improve the situation here, which is why I became an urban planner and why I do what I do. So
Right.
A lot of passionate people like you and I out there looking to make a change and
Absolutely.
have an opportunity with your organization to do so. So again,
Yes.
thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has
course.
been an exciting conversation. And again, we're very encouraged by what's happening on the ground and your commitment to transit and mobility, as well as that of the county and Director Cleckley. So we look forward to continuing to work with all of you to improve transit throughout our city.
Wonderful. And I'll see you at tonight's budget hearing. Bring
Yes.
your pillow. It's
Yes.
probably going to be a late one.
It will be. Thank
Okay.
you, Javier.
Thanks again, Grace. Thank you, Transit Alliance, for everything you do. Folks, that's it for today's show. Please tune in a couple of weeks at 10 a.m. on Thursday for our next set of guests. Thank you.